Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the C Files. Thank you for joining us. And don't forget to subscribe, give a thumbs up, and share this video. We live in strange times, don't we? We live in a strange world from the one that I grew up in, and even the one that existed 5, 6 years ago. And a lot of things are happening. But I want to give you a word from God out of His scriptures. And then we'll talk about some things in the news. That's some very important things, so hang around. It's going to be very, very important that we view these things. And so let's take a moment and look at a word from the eternal Creator, the eternal God who rules over His universe. This is going to be out of Isaiah chapter 55. Seek ye the Lord while He may be found. Call upon Him while He is near. Let the wicked forsake his way, and the unrighteous man his thoughts, and let him return unto the Lord, and He will have mercy upon him and to our God, for He will abundantly pardon. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, says the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. For as the rain comes down and the snow from heaven, and returns not thither, but waters the earth, and makes it bring forth and bud, that it may give seed to the sower, and bread to the eater, so shall my word be that goes forth out of my mouth. It shall not return unto me void, but it shall accomplish that which I please, and it shall prosper in the thing whereto I send it. For ye shall go out with joy, and be led forth with peace. The mountains and the hills shall break forth before you into singing, and all the trees of the field shall clap their hands. Instead of the thorn shall come up the fir tree, and instead of the brier shall come up the myrtle tree. And it shall be to the Lord for a name and for an everlasting sign that shall not be cut off. Thank you for joining us, folks, here at the C Files on YouTube. We appreciate you being here. And on this channel, I will be talking about things that are specific to YouTube, things that are allowed on YouTube, to the best of my ability. Now, if you want to see things that are not allowed on YouTube, go to my BitChute channel, C Files. And I am also working on my Rumble channel, trying to get videos to function well on Rumble. I got one loaded up yesterday, but it wasn't very good quality, and I've been trying to fix that. I think the only way I'm going to get Rumble to work for me is to upgrade my systems. And so this is something I will be working on in the future. Because, ladies and gentlemen, I plan on being around for a long time, unless the Lord takes me home. And so I haven't done anything to harm myself, let's put it that way. Well, let's look at some of the things that are going on in the news for just a moment. And let's see what's happening. Because there's a lot of things going on, and I can't report, like I said, I can't report on everything on YouTube because some things are just simply not allowed. Because, YouTube is in the back pocket of the globalist oligarchs who want to censor speech, right? And to control thought. And so it's their way or the highway, right? Well, speaking of their way or the highway, the mad dash to net zero continues to cause chaos across Europe. Well, what do they mean by net zero? This is a reference to the man-made climate change agenda. And here's the article. Let me see if I can bring it into focus for you. There we are. All right. Low tech, folks. This is a low tech channel, but I'll give you good information. Well, last October, the EU agreed to ban the sale of all petrol or gas, we would call it gas in the West, and diesel cars. Out here, it's diesel four-wheel drive jacked up pickup trucks, right? Or big diesel trucks that haul goods and services. Anyway, they're going to ban all that in Europe from 2035 as part of their push to make all of us drive battery cars or electric cars. I'm trying to doctor my throat while I'm talking, folks. All right. The 27 EU countries agreed that car makers must achieve a 100% reduction in CO2 emissions by 2035, which would make it impossible to sell a new car that used gas, petrol if you're in Europe, gas if you're in the United States, or diesel. Now the UK, now outside the EU because of Brexit, they broke away from the European Union, they're able to make their own laws. So what did they do? Did they counter what the European Union was doing? No, they decided they were going to do it even faster than the EU. And they passed laws in 2020 that petrol or diesel cars would be banned from 2030, 10 years ahead of the previous schedule. And of course, that would be in line with Agenda 2030 out of the UN. Then a year later, it brought in more laws on all forms of transport as part of a broader package of green initiatives aimed at achieving net zero emissions from all forms of transit 10 years later. So this was really all about Boris Johnson wanting to look super green at the UN's COP26 climate change conference in Edinburgh later on in 2021. Let me get a little bit of throat tea, folks. All right. 'Tis the season, right, for the cold, the flu, and all of that. But Boris was even more net zero demented than most, it says. Now this article is out of Gateway Pundit, by the way. He pushed plans to create a net zero rail network by 2050. He even launched a consultation to make all planes in Britain run on batteries. How does that work? I mean, I'd be scared to step on a plane that was ran on batteries. I'd be like, oh, we're going to die. I'm going to fall out of the sky and die. Or windmills or nuclear, so that domestic aviation would have zero emissions by 2040. Seriously, how in the world do you fly a plane on batteries? Seriously, how does that even work? I mean, could you imagine stepping on a 747? We've got battery power. Let's take off. And you go, oh my goodness. I mean, there's two places where atheists don't exist. In foxholes during a war, right? A battle. And I'm going to add a second one. Planes that fly on batteries. Because you're praying in both situations. All right. Oh my goodness, this is nutty. Anyway, would you fly on a plane that is ran on batteries? Seriously? I mean, how safe would that? How would that even work? Seriously. All right. Last week, it suddenly dawned on the UK Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, that 2030 was an impossible date to enforce everyone into battery cars, and he announced that 2035 was now the new cutoff date. Sorry, folks, can't do it by 2030. Yeah, you think? Do you have the infrastructure set up? Do you have the extra personnel with the fire department set up so that when all of these cars start burning down houses because they explode inside someone's garage while it's charging off of electricity that's probably being produced by fossil fuels? You're going to have the extra fire trucks and fire personnel to come and, try to put the fire out in that house. Yeah, you got to have infrastructure, and it's got to be practical technology. I still think that hydrogen might be a good possibility for the future, but we'll see. Anyway, it says you can imagine the chaos and confusion of car companies who need stability to plan ahead. That's true. Car companies are trying to make these adjustments for what these governments are saying. And, Dodge gave up their Hemi. And look, Chevy's looks like they're going to give up their LS engine. The Camaro's going away. I don't know about the Corvette, but the Charger's going electric. God help us. And come on, they had an amazing supercharged Hemi engine in that thing. I've got a Challenger in the garage that has a 6.4 liter, Hemi engine. V8, 500 horsepower. It's a beast. I can't imagine over 700 horsepower in a Hellcat because no way, no, too much for me. Seriously, it's too much. It's too much power because with 500, I don't use but probably a quarter of it. I use probably 30-40% of that power anytime I'm out driving. But it's nice to have it under the hood if you need it, But the thing is that they're fun cars. People who love those cars love the sound of those engines. They love the experience of driving them. The whole experience is just one of the joy of driving the vehicle. And there's nothing wrong with that. But what they're... that's gone, right? Dodge gave that up for electric vehicles. And so the Charger's going electric. We don't know if there's going to be a future Challenger. There's rumors that they might come back and with a Challenger and make it a Mustang fighter or whatever, a competition for the Mustang. I'm holding out on that one, folks. I don't know. The Mustang seems to be the last car that's going to have a V8 in it, other than maybe the Corvette. We'll see how it goes down. But this is the trend that we're heading down. And it is hard for these car companies to plan. They have to plan, like I said, 5 years ahead. And what about Toyota, who really puts a lot of planning into what they do to, have really dependable vehicles? They put a lot into it. This is not easy for the car companies. And if Trump gets in, guess what he's going to do? He's going to reverse these policies and go back to producing oil. It's said that we have 100 years of petroleum in the ground that we haven't pulled out. And so, I'm sure Trump is going to open that back up. And then what does Dodge do? Well, we got Hellcat engines, we got 6.4s, we got 5.7s. Let's just start dropping them into the cars again, Now, they came out with that new straight six Hurricane engine, which is just, it's got a lot of power. You can really tune that thing. So, the tuners will love that. So, who knows? It's kind of up in the air for the car companies. And they're not selling, folks. The cars are not selling right now. This really reminds me of 1973, 1974. The muscle cars were really a hot item from about 1968 to about 1971. And then, the manufactured oil crisis came around under the Carter administration, and gas prices went sky high. They had gas lines. You could only get gas on certain days, depending on the lettering on your license plate. Odd numbers on these days, even numbers on these days. That type of thing was happening. Double-digit inflation. Remember all that from the 70s? If you were alive back then, well. What's happening is we're kind of returning to those days when it comes to the car companies. Only it's even tougher now because of the electric phenomena coming in. It's confusing. The car companies are trying to figure out, what direction is this going to go, and are they serious about this? And the car companies are saying, yeah, we think they're serious about it, so we're going to have to start developing this technology. But then, I mean, the muscle cars just dropped in price. Nobody wanted them. The old Chargers, the old Mustangs, the old Camaros, the old Chevelles, the GTOs, all of the different, the Mercury Cougars. I mean, all of those old muscle cars just dropped in price because they were gas guzzlers and nobody wanted them. Well, guess how much they're worth today? I mean, you look at Metcham, you look at the auctions, what Metcham, and then there's the other one, I can't remember the name of the other auction that they have, but the two, starts with a B. Barrett? Is it Barrington? So, I can't remember, but anyway. They come across the stage, you get a 68 Charger, you get a 69 Z28 Camaro or a 302 Boss Mustang or something come across the stage from the 68, 69, 70. They're going for a lot of money. And so if you have a muscle car today, yeah, you're not going to be able to sell it right away, guys. It's just like 1973, 1974. Same thing. You got to wait. Keep it in good shape. Hide it away in the garage. Drive it moderately. 10 years down the road, it's going to be worth some money because people are going to want those vehicles. But not today. Not right now. So you got to think strategically with that. Anyway, this is creating a problem for the car companies, and that's the whole point. And it's going to create a problem for a lot of things. Like I said, they're not safe when it comes to trying to prevent them from blowing up. I mean, these cars, Teslas and other electric cars, have been going up in flames. The ones in China, there was a car that lit off in China, and then there was a line of those electric cars that just burnt the whole line down. So they got to really work on this technology. They just don't have it where they need it right now. And I just don't think electric is the future. I don't think we're there yet. I don't think the infrastructure is going to be good enough. I think you got to improve the safety on these vehicles when it comes to fire hazards. Anyway, Europe, we found out that new post-Brexit laws in the EU to protect them from cheap imports would add billions to the cost of pushing everyone into electric vehicles. So this is becoming a real problem and real difficulty. So, I mean, you can go to Gateway Pundit, look at the rest of the article, but the point is, this is not going to be an easy rollout of all this electric vehicles and these mandates of 2030, 2035, whatever it might be. In California, I think it's still 2030 that they're trying to push everything into electric. It's just not going to be that simple and easy. So we'll have to wait and see how this plays out. It's going to take 5 or 6 years for us to know, but it should be interesting to see how it all plays out. Let's go to the next article. Kerry Lake is still fighting this battle of the Arizona election, and there is a trial going on, and it has to do with inspecting Maricopa County's mail-in ballot signatures. And now the article says fraudulent. That is, of course, an opinion. But they are looking at the mail-in ballot signatures, and we'll have to wait and see what comes out of this trial. We don't have a conclusion on that yet, but they are being examined. That means that they're looking to see if the signatures are legitimate, if they are legitimate. So that's going on, and we'll see how that comes out. So the battle of the 2020 election has not gone away, and it is still in heading down the tracks, folks, heading down the tracks. Smartmatic implicated as uncharged co-conspirators in Philippines bribery and money laundering scheme. Now, the United States is not the only country in the world that's having controversy over elections. The Philippines is another country that's having that going on, and there are others. Now, the Philippines is close to my heart because I met my wife in the Philippines, and we got married there, and I still have relatives in the Philippines. So this is a country that I kind of pay attention to, and it's close to my heart. So the U.S. Department of Justice has brought charges against Andres Bautista, a Filipino election administrator, for money laundering. In the case, however, 4 executives of Smartmatic are reportedly named as uncharged co-conspirators. Smartmatic is currently embroiled in defamation lawsuits filed against several American people and firms, including Mike Lindell and Fox News. Now, this isn't the first time Smartmatic has been tied up in controversy regarding the Philippines, though. As reported by the Gateway Pundit, when former Tarrant County elections administrator Hyder Garcia was an executive with Smartmatic, he was excoriated by then Filipino Congressman Teodoro Lucene over issues with their voting system. Garcia would go on to run the elections in Tarrant County, Texas, which went blue in 2020 for the first time since 1964. He is now a senior advisor with the U.S. Elections Assistant Commission. Now, Smartmatic spokeswoman Samira Sabah has said the claims against Bautista are, quote, not related to Smartmatic election security or integrity, end quote, and that the company, quote, has never won a project through illegal means, end quote. And that's according to CNN. In the sealed indictment filed in the Southern District of Florida, 3 charges stemming back to July 2015, October 2017 are cited. And that is 18 U.S.C. 1950H conspiracy, that's the United States Code, USC is, conspiracy to launder monetary instruments, and it's 18 United States Code 1956A2A, promotional money laundering, and of course 18 United States Code 1956A2BI, concealment money laundering. So, quote, Smartmatic, the voting technology company suing Fox News and former President Donald Trump's top allies over their false claims, of course, this is an opinion, false claims is an opinion, that its machines rigged the 2020 election, was implicated in an alleged bribery scheme involving the former top election official in the Philippines. That's according to Just Human. So, Bautista served as the chairman of COMELEC from April 2015 to October 27. COMELEC, or Commission of Elections of the Republic of the Philippines, is an independent agency mandated to enforce and administer election laws in the Philippines. Now, according to charging documents, in or around the later part of 2015 and into 2016, Company 4 won bids, excuse me, not birds, there's no R in there. They won bids for 3 contracts worth a total approximate value of $199 million to supply COMELEC with voting machines and related services for the May 2016 elections for president, vice president, and other official positions. Folks, always follow the money, right? It's always the money. If you follow the money, you'd start discovering things. Well, in August 2017, Bautista's wife informed the Philippine National Bureau of Investigations that, quote, her husband had large amounts of unexplained wealth, end quote. From the charging documents, quote, in or around August 2017, Bautista's wife informed the Philippine National Bureau of Investigation agents that her husband had large amounts of unexplained wealth. She informed the NBI's Anti-Fraud Division that her husband had approximately 1 billion Philippines peso or approximately 20 million United States dollars of ill-gotten wealth. You know how far that'll go in the Philippines, folks? You know what the exchange rate is? Anyway, at their residence, she found foreign bank account information for Bauman, Shell Company X and Shell Company Y that she previously did not know existed. So it goes on, but you get the gist of it. There are charges of a little bit of shenanigans going on. And it's interesting that his wife turned him. Gentlemen, be good to your wives, okay? She turned him in. Oh man, dude, you should have been better to your wife. She got you. All right. Now, Newsom signs law requiring gender-neutral bathrooms in California K-12 schools. If you've seen this already, it's probably because you watched my video that was done for BitChute. So we're going to go over this again for the YouTube audience. All right. So basically, I'll go into a little bit more detail than what I did on BitChute. Basically, what's happening here, let's see if I can bring this out where you can see the whole thing. There you go. California Governor Gavin Newsom has signed a law requiring all schools in the state to provide gender-neutral bathrooms. The new legislation, signed on Saturday, expands a state law that schools allow students to use bathrooms that align with their gender identity. Does that scare you? That a biological boy who identifies as a female might be in the same restroom as your precious daughter while they are attending school? It's a scary thought, isn't it? Every dad that's worth his salt in the country should be trembling right now over that. Think about that. How dangerous that is for the female. A male, a biological male that's able to overpower females. Now, how many men will just proclaim that they are transgender for the simple purpose of being able to go into the female bathroom? Because in reality, they're red-blooded American men that have no scruples or morals, and they see an opportunity to take advantage. It's a scary thought, isn't it? But does Gavin Newsom care about that? No, he doesn't care. Come on, not really. He's all about the globalist agenda, and we're going to be talking more about that maybe in another video. I might bring a little bit about it out in this video. But if you really want the story behind why this kind of stuff is happening, go to my BitChute channel and watch the latest video on the BitChute channel. And my last video on YouTube, I think I'll tell you what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to subscribe to our podcast. The Vortex Apologetic Podcast, VORTX, apologetic, it's a word that means to defend the faith, APOLOGET, apologetic, IC, right? TIC. So the Vortex Apologetic Podcast, the one that's about to come out this week, we explain exactly how this came about, the transgenderism and all of this. We give you a history and a detailed explanation as to how we got here. So that's something you might want to take a look at. Moving right along. California Democrats could guarantee Trump a 2024 win. What? Are you kidding? This is out of Epoch Times. And let's take a look at what they have to say. It says it's a commentary. This is so funny. California Democrats are hatching a plot to keep former President Donald Trump off the state's ballot next year. but it could backfire and guarantee his wins. He wins. Politico headlined, California Dems consider unique approach to getting Trump off ballot. California lawmakers are urging AG Bonta to expedite court action against the former president. I guess it should say former President Trump or the former president. Anyway, the story, 9 California lawmakers wrote a letter to Attorney General Rob Bonta. I would have called you Robert anyway, over the weekend, urging that Trump isn't eligible to be on the ballot for inciting insurrection when a mob, mind you, mob of his supporters attacked. Do you see the key words here? The red letter words. The U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021. All right. Now, number one, Trump has not been convicted of insurrection in any court in the land. But where has he been convicted, folks? In the court of the globalist, oligarch-controlled media. The New World Order media has tried and convicted President Donald J. Trump of insurrection and are now pronouncing sentence upon him. Wow. These folks are so full of themselves. All right. The move, which comes amid several lawsuits to keep Trump off state ballots across the country, which is totally illegal, by the way, because he has not been convicted of anything. And if they try to do this, he'll just sue them. He'll sue them because they violated his constitutional rights at that point. It's unique because Bonta could use his standing as California's top law enforcement officer to expedite a state court ruling on the matter. Yeah, you can do anything you want if you totally disregard the Constitution and make up your own laws. Should the effort succeed, California could be the first state to bump Trump off its ballot, even if the ruling is ultimately overturned. This is being debated around the country based on the 14th Amendment, Section 3, which reads, please excuse a couple of medium-length quotes of context, quote, no person shall be a senator or representative in Congress or elector of president and vice president or hold any office, civil or military, under the United States or under any state who, having previously taken an oath as a member of Congress or as an officer of the United States or as a member of any state legislature or as an executive or judicial officer of any state to support the Constitution of the United States shall have engaged in insurrection, but it has to be proven in court, folks, or rebellion against the same, or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. Who are the enemies? We the people? What they're saying is that we the people, the normal people of the country, are their enemy. That's what they're telling us. But Congress may be a vote of 2/3 of each house remove such disability. So it takes a two-thirds vote of Congress to remove a president on this. So Trump's actions on January 6, 2021 supposedly made him the leader of an insurrection. The best argument against that was advanced by former U.S. Attorney General Michael McCosky in the Wall Street Journal. Quote, the use of the term officer of the United States in other constitutional provisions shows that it refers only to appointed officials, not to elected ones. Oh, wow. U.S. versus Mount, 1888. The Supreme Court ruled that unless a person in the service of the government holds his place by virtue of an appointment, he is not, strictly speaking, an officer of the United States. Chief Justice John Roberts. They've put two words together. I thought it was John Roberts. Chief Justice John Roberts reiterated the point in free. Wow, come on, stop putting the two words together. Anyway, he reiterated the point in Free Enterprise Fund versus Public Company Accounting Oversight Board of 2010. Quote, the people do not vote for the officers of the United States. So this is the bureaucrats. The officers of the United States, it represents the bureaucrats. So what if they can disqualify Trump? Now here's where it gets interesting. Hypothetically, what if Mr. McCaskey's argument doesn't hold up in the courts? The California and other states' attorneys general and governors or lawsuits by political groups could throw Mr. Trump off the ballot. Especially critical would be the swing states where Democrat governors, Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, everyone's favorite, right? Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear, and North Carolina Governor Ray Cooper. Oh, come on. Don't be picking on North Carolina. We got a supermajority in the Supreme Court and the Congress. Anyway, or Fulton County, Atlanta District Attorney Fannie Willis, already prosecuting Trump for allegedly interfering in the 2020 election, could do it. Now, if they do that, I'm writing him in. And that's exactly what will happen. People will write Trump in as a write-in candidate. How are you going to dispute that one? Well, we don't know if that actually says Donald Trump, right? But then Republicans could do it in their swing states, throwing President Joe Biden off the ballot. There you go. What you can do to one, you can do to the other, right? Oh, this is funny. They could say his alleged bribes from Communist China disqualify him under the 14th Amendment, Section 3 wording for having given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. Republican governors invoking the clause could include Glenn Youngkin of Virginia, Brian Kemp of Georgia, Kim Reynolds of Iowa, Joe Lombardo of Nevada, and Chris Sununu of New Hampshire. Oh, what web we weave. It would be what in military parlance is called mutual assured destruction. Folks, that's a term that was used in the 70s. In the 70s and 80s, actually, for nuclear warfare. If Russia and the United States get into a nuclear war, it'd be mutually assured destruction. In other words, nobody's going to win that war. It would be, it says, so where are we? Okay, if that happened, neither Mr. Trump nor Mr. Biden would reach the 270 electoral votes needed to win the presidency in the Electoral College. Then what? What do we do then? All right. You guys having fun with this one? Contingent elections. Then we would have the fourth of what's called a contingent election, although the phrase itself isn't in the Constitution. It means the matter is decided by the House of Representatives. Oh my. Who owns the House of Representatives, folks? Or the Senate or vice presidents. Now, there have been three so far. Thomas Jefferson beat Aaron Burr in 1800. John Quincy Adams beat Andrew Jackson in 1825. And in 1837, the vice presidential election was given to Richard Mentor Johnson over Francis Granger. Now, back then, they would actually elect a vice president separate from the president. Under a contingent election in the House, all 435 members don't get to vote. Rather, each state delegate gets one vote, 50 votes total. Folks, who do you think is going to win that one? We know who would win. On September 18, Canadian political writer Stephen Marche wrote an article for the left-wing Guardian titled, Here's the scary way Trump could win without the electoral or popular vote. In a contingent election, he could lose the popular vote, electoral college, and all his legal cases and still end up the legal U.S. president. Oh, this is hilarious. He calculated state delegates in the House would favor Republicans as a matter of course. In the struggle for congressional delegates, Republicans would have 19 safe House delegates and the Democrats would have 14 as it stands, with more states leaning Republican than Democrat. Ha ha. Of course, it's an opinion piece. So California, by knocking Mr. Trump off the ballot, oh, don't you just love it when one gets, when it backfires on them? Oh, it's just incredible. Anyway, could guarantee he becomes president. Again, none of this is likely to happen. If any state tries to keep him off the ballot, the courts almost certainly would put him back on, possibly reasoning along the lines Mr. Mukasey detailed. Well, plus he's not been convicted of anything. There's one thing this whole escapade teaches us. A large number of California politicians hold in contempt the Constitution, democracy, and the people of the state they claim to represent. In this train wreck of a state with housing, homelessness, drug addiction, schooling, budget, and countless other problems festering, don't they have anything better to do? So anyway, that was a fun article, folks. So look, all of this fear-mongering about Trump being thrown off the ballot, there you go. A little sip of my herbal tea, and we'll move on from there because Trump's got them trapped. Okay, there we go. All right, let's go to New York. How about that? You know, we just spent some time in California. It's time to travel up the, let's take Route 66 and head up to New York. And what's going on in New York, folks? What do you think's going on in New York? Well, let's find out what's happening in New York. Let's make sure the volume is up. There we go.
Does anybody live in New York City, and did you just have your house sprayed with pesticides? I was in my living room, my windows are open, these trucks come by, they're making these dystopian announcements. Run inside, get inside. What the?
Focus the pesticide, please. Go indoors immediately until the trucks have passed. The city is applying pesticides to reduce the threat of the West Nile virus.
This is the creepiest. Look at this. What the f*** is going right on my window?
New York, New York.
Does anybody live in New York City?
Nope, I don't, dude. I live in North Carolina, where Governor Cooper is. We gotta do something about that. Anyway, what happened to the Nazis, folks, after World War II? Anybody know? Anybody know what happened to the Nazis after World War II? Well, let me go to my low-tech manual method of giving you picturesque right here, all right? So, here you go. Von Braun, the great rocket guy, became head of NASA. Walter Hallstein became the head of the European Union Commission. Adolf Hausinger became NATO's chief of staff. And Kurt Waldheim became Secretary General of the United Nations. Well, how about that? Welcome to the Fourth Reich. Now, this next thing I was thinking about putting on, I'm not sure that it will work on YouTube, to be honest with you. But there was a presentation given by Dr. Meryl Nass, and she's talking about the WHO's proposed pandemic treaty, which enabled the WHO to take over jurisdiction of everything in the world by saying that climate change, animals, plants, water systems, and ecosystems are all central to health. And as I'm thinking about it, I don't think it'll be a problem because it's not talking about anything that I don't think that violates YouTube's standards. Let me read the rest of this. In addition to that, it will remove human rights protections, enforce censorship, and digital passports. Of course, we've all been talking about the possibility of this happening. Require governments to push a single official narrative, and enable the WHO to declare pandemics on a whim. We're undergoing a soft coup, she said, under the pretext of pandemic preparedness and biosecurity agenda. Now, let's let her talk. I'm going to go ahead and put this on because I don't think there's anything on here that actually violates. It's just reporting on this UN treaty that has been drawn up, and a number of nations around the world have signed on to this treaty. So what's in this treaty? What happens as a result of this treaty going into effect? Okay, that's all we're talking about here. So just to make sure we're not violating YouTube standards, we're just talking about what happens with this treaty that has been signed, okay? So let's go with it, and I'm going to back this up. So here we are.
Undergoing a soft coup, and the idea is to create a whole new set of laws and ignore the existing human rights laws and other laws under the pretext of pandemic preparedness and the biosecurity agenda. The WHO is developing through all its nations, but with the WHO Directorate in the United States in charge, a pandemic treaty and amendments to the existing international health regulations that will remove the human rights protections currently embedded in the IHRs, will enforce surveillance, censorship, get rid of freedom of speech, require governments to censor and only push a single narrative. Also, we will be subject, if they can make this work, to vaccines developed in 100 days, which the organization CEPI is planning to do. And one of the people who founded CEPI was Jeremy Farrar, who is now the chief scientist at the WHO, to bring this forward. Other things that the amendments do is to bind the states so they're no longer recommendations but enforceable edicts. Provide a liability shield, get rid of intellectual property rights, move supplies from one country to another, enforce digital passports, and the Director General of WHO can demand that a pandemic or a potential pandemic exists. He can just declare it with no standards, and then countries around the world will have to obey. Also, the WHO will tell you what drugs you can and can't use in your nation once a pandemic is declared. Obviously, the budget will increase. One Health is another part of this. One Health is a concept that was created to enable the WHO, with these documents, to take over jurisdiction of everything in the world by saying that climate change, animals, plants, water systems, ecosystems are all central to health. Also embedded in this concept is a peculiar notion that humans are no longer of greater value than animals.
Yeah, that comes out of Darwinian evolution, by the way. And so that's what the treaty would do. And so that's the direction that we're heading if this actually goes through. So there you go. Well, folks, that's it for the day. It's already long. We're almost at an hour. Thanks for watching. I appreciate all of you. And like I said, I'm trying to keep it within the standards that YouTube wants, so that we can continue to make these videos and give you the news that we can put on the YouTube. And talk a little bit about the scriptures. And we have to remember that God is in control. He is sovereign over his universe. And nothing happens beyond his knowledge or his boundaries. God sets boundaries, and nothing is allowed to surpass those boundaries. There's a purpose behind all of this. Romans 8:28, of course, says that all things work together for good to those who love God, who are the called according to his purpose. So for those who are in Christ, all of the things that are happening in our world today is working for the good of the bride of Christ. And so let's keep that in mind. Let's do our part. He gave us the Great Commission, right? Tells us to go forth and be faithful to him and preach the gospel. I had a gentleman and his wife come by yesterday as I was trying to wash my car in the driveway, and gave me a gospel tract, and they were from a local Baptist church out here. And we had a cordial conversation. I was appreciative that they came up and cared enough about me to come up and tell me about Christ. And to go to my neighbors and do the same thing. We need to do more of this type of thing, folks, because it is the gospel of Christ that can preserve our world. Because the church, when it is not apostate, but when it is a Bible-believing church following the scriptures, following the work of the Holy Spirit within us in sanctification, following Christ, is the salt and the light of the world. So let's be the salt and the light of the world. So thank you, folks, for joining us, and God bless. We'll see you on the next C-Files.